and good evening. I'm Melisa Idris. Welcome to Consider This. This is the show where we want you to consider and then reconsider what you know of the news of the day. The recent retirement of the Election Commission chairperson Tan Sri Abdul Ghani Salleh has raised critical questions about his successor. Now, this coupled with the recent appointments of EC members Datuk Lee Bee Pang and Datuk Sabdin Ibrahim, which were made without Parliamentary Select Committee consultation, have sparked calls from civil society groups for a complete overhaul of the appointment process. Now, as we delve into the issues today on the show, we ask how crucial is transparency and independence in the selection of those who oversee our democratic processes. So joining me on the show today is Danesh Prakash Chacko, who is Director of Tindak Malaysia, as well as Ngeow Chow Ying, who is the Convener of Projek SAMA. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining me on the show today. I was hoping we could start this conversation maybe by getting an overview of what the role is of the Election Commission, particularly in the context of Malaysia, our political and electoral setting, and why this role is so important for a functioning democracy. Maybe, Chow Ying, you can start.
Yeah, under our Article 113 of the Federal Constitutions, the Elections Commissions conduct the elections, which means they run the elections. They also prepare and revise the electoral roll. They have the power to revise the constituency of the boundaries. They can make some elections rules. But I think I want to go a little bit further about the role and functions of election commissions. Some will call it electoral management body, right? There are many functions of an electoral management body. First is conduct of elections, which means that you have to make sure the elections runs properly. Accessibility to the voters, how they vote. In Indonesia, there are election commissions that run the elections.
Okay.
There are an oversight body that look through the process of the elections. There is another higher body which receive complaint.
Yeah. Oh, it's all separate.
There are three separate bodies
for Indonesia.
in Indonesia that actually run the conduct of the elections.
Oh.
And the second main function is the voter registrations and also the electoral roll. Of course, voter registrations, now we are automatic registration, so there's no issue about registration. But there are still issues about the electoral roll. That is where the issue about, wow, my father had passed away 20 years ago. Why is he still eligible to vote? And this is not a simple task, I must say, that because you need to work with other agencies, for example, the registration of death and birth agency, to update
to make
all
sure
the
that it's
records.
a clean electoral roll.
Exactly. And also, you know, the address. In Malaysia, we have sometimes the address of one jalan without the... So all these are main functions, one of the main functions of the elections commissions. Delineations, of course. And I think in some country, the election commissions, apart from reviewing the boundaries, they have the power to approve and the recommendations. But I think in Malaysia, the EC, after complete the exercise of redelineations, they have to make the recommendations to the Prime Minister and table to the parliaments. That is one big function as well. So you can see election commissions actually is not just conducting of the elections, but there are a lot of things. Yeah,
we only see that, you know, whenever there's elections, by-elections, that's the only time we actually see and hear of them. But actually, there's a lot of things that's happening behind the scenes. Danesh, maybe you can share the role of the EC chair and the commissioners, right? So how do their decisions impact our democracy?
It's a very good question. For me, the EC chairman pretty much heads this whole commission. So his or her attitude towards the election matter will determine whether this elections is conducted in a free and fair manner or not. That's one aspect. The willingness to show improvements. Now, we talk about the commissioners. There was a point of time the commissioners actually had specific areas they could cover for the reform part. This is during Art Harun's time, if I'm not mistaken. So they they will, maybe some of them focus about the electoral roll, some will talk about the conduct elections, some will talk about postal voting. Now it's not very clear. So this is what the situation is. But more importantly is whoever makes up this whole election commission, the chairperson, the deputy chairman, the deputy chairman, and the 5 members.
So there's 7 people overall,
7 people,
okay?
right. All of them, based on our constitution, shall be appointed with the idea of securing an election commission that enjoys public confidence. So if you have a right-minded chairman and the right set of deputy and also with the members, that's where you're able to ensure the election commission practice out the public confidence.
Okay, so of these 7 members, the chair, deputy, and the 5 commissioners, how are they selected? What is the current process for appointing EC members currently, Danesh?
Okay, based on our constitution, it's very straightforward.
It's in the constitution.
Yes, it's mentioned in the constitution. They shall be appointed by the Yang di-Pertuan Agong after the consultation with conference of rulers. Okay, that's how it is written.
Okay.
And then the other part is when the Yang di-Pertuan Agong appoints a chairman and all these members, it must build an election commission that enjoys public confidence. Of course, there are some rules such that if the person is found to be an undischarged bankrupt or engaged in paid activities, then that person will be removed. And these members, if I'm not mistaken, can stay until the retirement age of 66.
Okay, you've used the phrase enjoys public confidence quite a number of times. What does that mean, actually?
It's a very good question. Actually, it is quite vague. It is actually quite vague.
Is it in the constitution?
It
enjoys
public
confidence.
It is. At the end of the day, election commission, when it delivers elections, it is actually delivering a method to legitimize a formation of government. So, in order for elections to legitimize a formation of government, it must be done in a manner that the public is confident that it has followed the laws and it is done properly. So this is what I interpret as public confidence, is that whole perception.
All right, okay.
Where
Chow, you're a practicing lawyer. so when we think about a turn of phrase like enjoys public confidence in the constitution, how do we interpret that from in a legal standpoint?
Yeah, I think Dennis is absolutely right. There is this word in public confidence, but there's really no definitions, and it has not been tested in a court as well. But what he mentioned about the legitimacy of governments, which is absolutely the point of why election commissions need to be independent, autonomous, and bipartisan, as in like no political backgrounds.
Okay, all right.
This is important because the pillar of democracy starts with a free and fair elections, and the free and fair elections is conducted by the election commissions. We don't want the situations where the loser will come out and say that I've been cheated. We want to make sure that the elections is conducted with level playing ground, fair play to all the parties, all the players in the game.
Right.
Right. So that is why it is so important to have election commissions that uphold this very important pillar of our democracy.
Okay, can I just ask you to maybe describe how you think current public confidence is in the EC as it stands today with the current appointment process? How would you describe public trust and public confidence in it?
I think, to me, I think before 2018, the public confidence and public trust in the election commission is really low, right? That is also one of the reasons why you have seen per se ready 1, 2, 3. But I think after 2018, there are some improvement in terms of how the election commissions conduct themselves and conduct the elections. For example, I think the indelible ink is a good example that get rid of ghost voters, the issue of ghost voters. I remember in the old days.
Yeah, the phantom voters.
The phantom voters,
that was such
the bus that coming in, you know, all these things. It actually rid people of the confidence of the result of the elections. You know, this is a cheated elections. And so that has been improved. And I think for the past few elections, by-elections, the election commissions actually do a live FB on the opening of the ballot, which is good.
Okay.
You know, it's part of the process. But this is a very small and easy to do things.
Okay, these are the small wins.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the bigger things is really, to me, of course, the appointment process, the independence of the election commissions, but also we have to look on the overall reform of the election commissions. You know, one of the function of the election commissions or electoral body, management body, is also the enforcement of the elections law, where our election commissions under the Election Offences Act have no power to investigate, to impose fine, or to even prosecute any incumbent or political party that violate the Election Offences Act.
Who has that power currently?
So they will tell you that make a police report or make an MACC report. But there are so few cases being brought to court over the years.
Okay, all right.
But there are so many reports of election commission, election offence being committed. So we do need to have a bigger picture, a bigger reform of the whole election commissions itself.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. So what about you, Danesh? Do you agree with what Chow Ying just said about how she described public confidence in the current EC?
If you ask me at this given point of time, I'm very much in agreement with what Chow Ying has said. I will just elaborate a bit more. So since the 2018 elections herald a significant change in the leadership of the Election Commission. Pretty much the old faces at the top, not the bureaucracy, at the top has been left already or resigned, and then was replaced with Art Harun. Later we have different sets of commissioners came into play. And with that, we see reforms was taking place. Okay. So for example, involving the more NGOs in the election observation. So, and EC is more willing to cooperate with the NGOs that, look, we talk about this election offences problem, we've got this problem, that problem. So that's one aspect. Then even though Art Harun has stepped down, there was some tepid reforms that taken place. One of the main reforms was, especially during the Malacca state elections, if I'm not mistaken, the expansion of the eligible postal voting class to all overseas Malaysians without a lot of nuances. And that has, and this is a power that EC can do, and EC decided to act on this. So they have increased the enfranchisement process. So sure, there are some challenges with that whole postal voting for the overseas.
Yeah.
Okay, and even for the state elections last year, the Election Commission even decided to declare overseas Malaysians as postal voters much ahead, if I'm not mistaken. So giving more time for you to register. So these are some of the reforms that have taken place, and nowadays we don't hear much complaints or there is a need of protest, and even if there is complaints, it's usually coming from the political parties, but it's not necessarily associated with the public coming together to go against this per se.
Not like the birthday rallies that we've had before. Okay, so, but having said that, there can be improvements, particularly in the appointment process. So talk to me about what changes are being proposed to the current appointment process. What were the concerns with the current process that you would like to see changed in the future?
Okay, so as you have noticed, in our constitution, it's just only 1 or 2 sentences on how to appoint. There's more things to have to say about how to remove a person. Okay, now let's talk about the appointment process. First thing first, we want to ensure that the Election Commission, we're talking about the chairman, the deputy chairman, and all the members. Tindak Malaysia's proposal is when you appoint, you should also get the concurrence of the opposition leader. Okay, so because at the end of the day, it's not just about the incumbent winning the elections. We also have to ensure that the losing side has a dignified exit. Okay, or those who didn't form the government, they still form the opposition. They should be respected. Okay, that's one part of it. Now, before that name gets appointed by the Yang di-Pertuan Agong, followed by the concurrence, what we propose is names shall be submitted in front of a judge appointed by the Chief Justice of Malaysia, and this shall be public hearings about the proposed candidates. And these proposed candidates are listed to the judges and let the judge make some understanding of what is going on. And then these findings is presented to the king. and let the king decide accordingly. So this is what we are proposing. That for me would involve constitutional amendment. But if you want to do
why would it involve a constitutional amendment?
Because these are rewording the articles in the constitution. But we can emulate this in the current setting, that is a Parliamentary Special Select Committee on Institutional Reforms, Elections and Human Rights. Okay. So you can use that similar concept.
So they would function like a judge would in that case, would it be?
In a way, yes, but the only thing is we can't really do an identical comparison because they are politicians.
Understood, and vested interests all around.
But the thing is that Parliamentary Special Select Committee is involved, it's more, I would go beyond the question of bipartisan. It's different coalitions members are found in the committee itself.
Okay, all right. And what about you, Chow Ying?
Yeah, I think during Bersih time, Bersih have done a extensive research about the reform of the election commissions, and then we propose that it split into three. One is election commissions that conduct, the other one is look at the electoral roll, and one is look at the boundary delimitations, right? But we also have a paper about the appointment process of key public office. Yeah. So because there's no doubt that the Prime Minister have a very powerful role in terms of appointment process. Even though we said that under the constitutions, a lot of the commissions are appointed by the YDPA, but YDPA is constitutional monarchy. They have to take the advice of the Prime Minister. So basically, it is the Prime Minister that is having the power to appoint MACC chief, AG chambers, who also act as the prosecutor. So this is one big reform that is ongoing. It is important for us to really flatten the tips of the power of one person, because, you know, the power to appoint somebody can be abused. It can become a patronage. It can even become cronyisms, corruptions, and things like that can happen. So for the past many years, the Prime Minister have enjoyed that power. And I think it is about time for us to relook at that power and really flatten the curve, like what we said. So there is a suggestions to have all these key appointments go through the Parliament, nominations committee, for example, because it is the Parliament are the representative of the people. You have to go back to the Parliament. But I think, again, it is a long-term process. It could be take a longer term, and election commissions reform is much bigger than just the appointment process. I have to keep emphasize that. But I think at the moment there is opportunity open, because we have two commissions, one chair, one commissions, that is, the seat is vacant, and we have a Parliamentary Select Committee already there. The Parliamentary Select Committee, like Danesh said, on human rights, elections, and institutional reform, chaired by YB William Leong. YB William Leong already opened and said that our committee is open to have that process. So the process is simple. You have a term of reference for the committee, open up the call for submissions, people who are eligible and interested and think that they are, they can fill the positions, apply. The committee can read through first, eliminate those that is not fulfill the criteria, and then have an interview process. The interview process before the whole committee members, which is a coalition's member. It can be an open process, which of course is more transparent, but we can talk about whether it can be a closed process, because maybe some of the candidate is not comfortable in front of the cameras, and so that can be discussed. And with that process done, there is a shortlisted name, and the shortlisted name goes to the PM and goes to the YDP.
Okay, so it
doesn't need
easily
anything.
done. Okay,
you don't need an extra Parliamentary Select Committee. It is already there.
There's already a system in place. Can I ask you? So the criteria for what we're looking for in an EC chair and commissioners. How do we think about that? You mentioned they need to be kind of non-partisan, independent, right? But have the previous, let's just go with EC chair at the moment, have most of them been from the civil service? Is that historically accurate to say that previous EC chairs have been from the civil service? I know there's this kind of perception maybe from the public that this position is seen to be almost a retirement present, you know, like a reward for civil servants post-retirement. How do we think about who fits the bill? Who would make a great EC commissioner, EC chair?
If I may say, I think building on the question about changing the appointment process, it's about some of the criteria required, and not just only for the chair, but including the members and the deputy. Very important, must have interest or passion in elections. I have to really emphasize this.
Has not that always been the case?
Exactly, that's the challenge, right? Because if you have that listed in as a criteria, even with the Parliamentary Select Committee on this, then you actually already vet out quite a number of candidates who to be considered. Okay, that's one. The other one is, at least this has to be codified instead of by convention.
Okay.
One member from Sabah and one member from Sarawak. Okay, right now it is by convention is we have one representative from East Malaysia. Right? But that is convention, not codified. So if you notice historically the Election Commission, by convention, it is actually representing the major ethnic groups in the country. Okay, so this is by convention. But if you ask me before that, one Sabah, Sarawak, first of all, is a person interested in elections.
Right. Danesh, you have, if I understand correctly, Tindak Malaysia has been submitting these proposals, right, for the revamp, at least for the revamp of the EC election process. What engagements have you had with, who have you had them with, and how have they responded to your proposals?
It's a very good question. We have been actually engaging with the various institutions since 2018 after the change of government. So after the change of government, we had the Institutional Reform Committee. So this is when we submitted all the various NGOs, including Bersih, submitted various proposals. And this was the, I would say, like a flowering period of potential reforms at that time. Right? But as we know that they have looked at all the views, they have studied, but at this point we are not very privy about what has transpired.
Okay.
Then we have the Electoral Reform Committee. Another now very specific. Previously was institutional, now we talk very specific about Election Commission. So election reform, again we submitted all the views. I believe they have studied all our views, but we have not heard much. Anyway, the findings was, if I'm not mistaken, is still not disclosed until today.
Okay, but where do you anticipate resistance to these reforms? I mean, we may not know how they respond, but where do you foresee pushback coming from, at least?
This is purely from a speculation point of view. I can say it's actually is the incumbent of the day. Okay, so the incumbent government, whoever it is, would feel that they have already succeeded in this current flawed system that we have, so they would have resistance to change it. So if you ask me, that is, I mean, we have wonderful people in the Parliamentary Select Committee. There was similarly a similar iteration of this committee in one of the previous parliamentary sittings. But they are wonderful people, but they are not able to progress much, if I'm not mistaken.
That's kind of inertia. Chow Ying, do you think that this Madani government, how likely will this Madani government prioritize these reforms that you talk about?
Yeah, I think in terms of resistance, just now you mentioned, I think there are many reforms that required, and all are different in natures and different kind of reforms. So I wouldn't say resistant to all the reform, because some of the reform I think do need more deliberation, discussion. But in terms of the reform proposed on the process of appointment, which I mentioned just now, the simple thing of going through the Parliamentary Select Committee that we have now, I don't think there should be any resistance at all from the government, from the civil society, even from the oppositions. I mean, why is it that there is such a resistance to have an open process for appointment of such an important post? The oppositions, of course, want elections commission chair that is transparent, that is independent. They are in the process, they're involved in the process of the appointment. I don't think the oppositions will say no to it. Madani government, they have it in their own election manifesto. So, would this reform or this small little things that we ask make the government fall? I don't think so.
Okay. All right. So in the minute or so that we have left, I want to ask the both of you, how can we build more momentum to build this broader coalition of the public buy-in, of the stakeholders that we talked about, to get that momentum that we want to see? How do we do that? What message do you have for our listeners?
I would like to emphasize one important thing to all of you who are listening to today's session. In Malaysia, we have a lot of issues, but one of the issues that can be more easily solved is elections. I understand we are in a post-election period, minus all the by-elections, but the election process gives birth to whoever the government of today is in existence, and that government impacts your daily life. Hence, please take a very serious interest whenever the NGOs puts up a statement, or you push your MPs, especially those in the Parliamentary Select Committee, to really push through this reform. Because if we get the right election commission makeup, we have free and fair elections, and we lay the foundation of bigger reforms to come.
Right.
Yeah, I would say that it is absolutely crucial that we have this appointment of the chairperson of the election commissions through a transparent, open process. They are the one really make the reform on elections happens, and this is the pillar of our democracy. We cannot lose that.
Thank you both for shedding light on such an important matter. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all we have for you on this episode of Consider This. I'm Melisa Idris, signing off for the evening. Thank you so much for watching. Good night.